fucks left. No, no. I have no fucks, right? Oh, oh. I have no fucks left. No, no. So fuck off. I'm busy. Bye bye. Piss off. Not sorry. Don't cry.
Belief doesn't just happen because you hang something up on a wall. All right? Comes from in here, you know? And up here, down here. Only problem is we all got so much junk floating through us. A lot of times we end up getting in our own way. You know, crap like envy or fear, shame. I don't want to mess around with that shit anymore. You know what I mean? Oh, you know what I want to mess around with? The belief that I matter, you know? Regardless of what I do or don't achieve, or the belief that we all deserve to be loved. Whether we've been hurt, or maybe we've hurt somebody else. Or what about the belief of hope? Yeah, that's what I want to mess with. Believing that things can get better, that I can get better, that we will get better. To believe in yourself, to believe in one another, man, that's fundamental to being alive. And look, yo, hey, if you can do that, if each of you can truly do that, can't nobody rip that apart.
I have no fucks left. No, no. I have no fucks, right? Oh, oh. I have no fucks left. No.
All right, so I reckon we're going to call this a bonus episode. It's not a full episode. It won't have my regular segments. It won't have a word of the day. As a matter of fact, a different episode was planned for this week in this particular episode's placement. But what I'm about to talk about just is running through my head constantly, and I just have felt so helpless and not in control, and I needed to find a way to hopefully take control. And so this is my first attempt, which is to, for all intents and purposes, control the narrative. Hopefully, and I know I'm talking to primarily people that most likely agree with me or think like I do. But if there's someone in your world that doesn't, if there was ever an episode to play for them or to have them listen to with you, this would be the one. So I'm going to take this kind of theme of what I need to talk about, and I'm going to break it into 3 different sections here. Okay, the first one has to do with the fact that I know many people in my community, and when I keep saying my community, specifically as a whole, the queer community, but then even more specifically, the trans, intersex, and non-binary community. I hate, and I'm sure most of the people in this community do, and I would think even around the world, that as of late, it is so disheartening and frightening that when these horrible, tragic mass shootings and incidences like this happen, that the first thing everyone starts talking about is motivation and political party, and are they cisgendered, male, female, trans? Like, everyone is so focused on that first and foremost, instead of the victims and their families and the actual incident and the actual problems and the actual things that are actually fucking happening. And it's just killing me. So I want to attack it first from this perspective. And I tried to look up quite in-depthly facts and figures and data to back this up. And as of yet, I've not been able to. So I can only share this in a kind of anecdotal sense and from someone who has been around various members all over the country, various members of the LGBTQIA plus community because of the career I'm in. And so I'm just going to share my insights and hope that you understand this, okay? And obviously there's always exceptions to everything, always. So I first looked up how many violent crimes are committed by an actual known member of the LGBTQIA plus community. Couldn't get that data because for the most part, those that keep this data don't drill down more and say, oh, and by the way, what's your sexual orientation? What gender do you identify as, et cetera, et cetera. They just, they used to just look at basically sex, race, maybe age, where this happened, et cetera. Like that was it. And that's basically how the data has been compiled. So I'd like to share some anecdotal stories and anecdotal kind of view, and then my personal view, which is that psychology and society and people that study this, most of them will tell you that those who commit violent crimes are doing this as a way to act out, are doing this in a way to get attention, are doing this in a way to make a name for themselves. Now, their agenda or their quote unquote motive, that's all baked in. But for the most part, one commits a crime or one commits violence because they don't feel there's any other answers. And they're clearly in a bad place. And the only way they can feel like they get any kind of solace or any kind of closure is to act out in a violent fashion. We know that, we see that, it's true. I don't need to back that up. That's just how that happens. So then when you start looking at, anecdotally again, the fact that for the most part, most members of the LGBTQIA plus community are not going to commit a violent act because, first of all, when you are a member of this community and you do come out and you fully live as yourself and you embrace your truth, you don't have any more walls really to put up anymore because it's very scary going into this world and going into this life and stepping into this life, knowing that from the onset, before you even proclaim you are out to your family and friends and even to yourself, you know there are a lot of people out there that hate you, that will not accept you, that will not agree with you, that think you're an abomination and that you should not exist. And yet you are still going out into that community and you are still standing strong and you are still living your truth. That's a huge thing. Trust me. I've done it on several different levels. And when you do that, you get to a point where, like this podcast, you might have no fucks left. Because really at this point, what can you possibly do to me? I am now living my truth. I am now going to make sure that I only surround myself with the people that care about me and love me and treat me with value and worth. And so I am here to tell you that for the most part, for most of this community, the last thing on anyone's mind is, now I'm going to get attention by committing a violent act. Or I even have that necessarily within me. Like, I don't know if you've been around a lot of people in my community, but they're really fun, loving, joyful people that, love to party, love to show their pride, love to be happy and have some libations and dance. And like, that is really ultimately what I think most people actually have a problem with when it comes to this community, is that how are they living so well and so joyfully, and the rest of us are, in Shitsville, not completely, again, speaking in generalities, but there's obviously a difference. This meme was coming out after the Emmys, and it showed in the one category, it showed like how all the members of, or those that were nominated that were of the LGBTQIA plus community, when they didn't win, they still like had this joyful look on their face and near tears celebrating the fact that the person that did win in this particular category was a member of the community. And so within our community, because we know that we are constantly targets and we are constantly in the scope of people's vitriol and homophobia, transphobia, etc., we tend to stick together for the most part as a marginalized community. And a lot of marginalized communities do. It just obviously makes sense. And so we don't have that competitive edge in our queer community. We just don't. We understand that on a given level, everyone is kind of in the same boat, and that it could be any of us. And so when someone in our community is elevated, we feel, at least I do, that that's also us. Like, we can see ourselves, obviously, and it gives us hope. And so we don't rain on people's parades. We don't turn to violence. If anything, and this is very true, violence happens to us and members of my community far more than most. I'm not going to say it's more than any other marginalized community. The fact is, it shouldn't be happening to any, but it does. And I'm sure those statistics are actually probably higher because most of these agencies only gather data for hate crimes. And it's very difficult to get that kind of hate crime statute in there in some instances when it comes to those acts committed against someone in the LGBTQIA plus community. So again, point number one here is that when you're talking about violent crime, when you're talking about these heinous acts, for the most part, members of the LGBTQIA plus community are not going to even be capable of that at that level because of just how we live and just kind of the bubble we're already going into immediately by just stepping out and stepping into our truth and living authentically. That kind of situation does not ordinarily and easily lead to someone being able to then commit a crime like this. Does it happen? Yes, absolutely, without a doubt. And I would venture to say that in those instances, it wouldn't take you long to come to the conclusion that this person was probably acting out because they couldn't fully live and be themselves for whatever reason, whether it be they felt an institution was keeping them from that, whether they felt a town or a location, a geographic location was keeping them from that. That's where I think you might get more closer to what's happening in these instances as far as them potentially acting out against someone that they believe is keeping them down and hurting them. And I'm not justifying that by any means. I'm just saying, like, that's most likely what you will find in those very few examples. For the most part, we are talking about a community that just wants to be left alone, that just wants to love and be loved, that just wants to have fun, that just wants to own who they are and contribute to society. That's it. No agenda. Just wanting rights and just wanting to live peacefully. Okay? So then that leads me to point number 2, which is that most of this vitriol comes from a standpoint and comes from a place of obviously insecurity. And what I mean by this is those pointing the fingers, those constantly trying to turn the spotlight on, in this case, a lot lately, the trans community, and saying that, this whole community, I've seen many notable politicians in very high positions refer to the trans community as being a militia, as being a terrorist network, as being, in some instances, more dangerous and more threatening than, some country's military or terrorists, like honest to God trained terrorists that's their job. Like, again, I have never held a gun and I never will. And I think a lot of people in my community would possibly agree. At least in my case, being intersex and then male to female, like kind of how fighting and violence is glorified, at least within, let's say, a lot of male groups and majority male populations. It's quite the opposite, at least for me and those that I know in the community that I hang out with that are male to female. We kind of shied away from those activities and those things because even if we weren't aware of what was happening to us, we were aware that we weren't like everyone else. And so if you're going into a wrestling match or a boxing match or what have you with other men and they believe you to be a man and you can't deliver at that level, you become a target. So at least in my life, when, guys were going shooting or when, they were fucking around, like, I don't know, but like when boys were doing what boys do, I would do everything in my power to either ensure that I wasn't alone if I was not participating, or I just would not go because I did not want to be in the position of bringing any unnecessary attention to myself. And again, until you're fully out and embrace who you are, that's how you're going through life. For the most part, you just don't want the attention. You don't want the pressure. You're figuring things out. And so the last thing you're going to do is, again, step into a position or to do something that's going to bring that attention on you. And so my second point is that, for the most part, the vitriol and kind of the focus comes from majority of white cisgender males. And it is because it is scary to them, to really anyone, but primarily to them, to see someone live so fully authentic and to be so comfortable in their skin. Because I've been around men all my life, and I can tell you that, at least within anecdotally again, many of them are insecure. They may not say it out loud. They may not show it. They may never say it or admit to it, but you can just tell. And then sometimes they do admit it, and that should be celebrated. Instead of them feeling like, oh, they're going to be targets and their masculinity is now going to be attacked. We should be able to give them the landing runway that they need to be able to admit they're feeling insecure, they're feeling vulnerable, they're feeling overwhelmed, they're feeling lost, but we don't. And that is a problem. And what that does is it makes them start to get nervous and scared. And then you got to project. You've got to now make yourself somehow feel better. And so what do? You punch down. And in this case, as of lately, a lot of punching down to the trans community, specifically male to female. And that's why I isolated the white cisgendered male when I talked about this. Because if you just look at the kind of vitriol that is happening, it's predominantly towards one part of the trans community, male to female, and it's coming from predominantly one large area, white cisgendered males. And so that's probably happening for many reasons, whether it be, like I said, insecurity, but that idea, and I don't want to lose focus on this, that idea of someone living authentically as themselves. And it doesn't even have to be that they're a member of the community. If they are living authentically as themselves as a rock star, if they're living authentically as themselves as a civic leader, as someone that people can look up to, that's where we start getting into charisma and charm and character and just so natural, those descriptors, because those are things you find in someone who's truly going through life with the understanding that they know who they are, they know what's important to them, And they're not afraid to let the world see that. And for the most part, to make observations about them based on how they're presenting themselves. If you're living authentically, as I am, and someone says, oh, well, Landyn's just doing this to get attention, that's not going to bother me because I know that's not true. And those that matter to me know that's not true. Because again, at least in my situation, I really struggled with, how visible did I want to be? How out did I want to be? I really kind of came into this thinking, I'm just going to kind of chill and be very laid back and really not ruffle any feathers and just live my life and hope for the best. And as if you've listened to the show, I started this podcast a week before the elections and everything changed within an instant. And so I'm starting to still become more and more comfortable with being outspoken and having the spotlight on me and being visible. But it's not easy for me. It was far easier for me to do that while being Landyn with an O, my male self as I was presenting it at the time, in my career, in my industry. The moments where I felt insecure and paranoid and like, oh God, I'm probably showing my hand too much here, is when I wasn't acting, I wasn't in a show with other actors, and I didn't have that kind of stability in that family to anchor me. When I was just kind of out there alone, I was horribly insecure and neurotic. So I know what that feeling is like, that when you're not able to be yourself, when you're not living authentically, when you feel like the world as a whole does not know who you really are, and it could be for any number of reasons. You're not showing it. You're not able to show it. You don't even know who you are yet. It's a feeling that's deep in your stomach, and you don't want that feeling. You want to live in the level and the zone in the world of just beauty and joy and happiness and confidence and security and knowing who you are and being able to go day to day, morning till night, minute by minute, walking the path that you know you're supposed to be on. Not everyone gets that. A lot of people in my community get that. A lot of trans people, a lot of intersex, non-binary, gay, lesbian, bisexual, asexual, poly, pansexual. Those people are living authentically for the most part, because the only thing that was maybe causing them to feel that sense of not being complete was this last little thing that they were told from an early age, or they learned, or they saw. Oh, hey, if you come forward and you admit to the world that you are this, and you embrace that, you are now opening yourself up for more hate, more vitriol, more targets, possible violence, etc., etc. So it's no wonder that first and foremost, people don't come out. Like, why would you come out? It's just ridiculous. If you know everyone in the world is against you, or you feel a strong percentages, and you have a choice to come out or not come out, knowing that if you come out that door and you announce to the world and you live your truth, there's going to be a hard battle. And you've already dealt with a hard battle getting to this point. Unless you're really in a very, very good place, you're not going to take that last step. You're not going to come forward. You're not going to step out. I know. That was me for a very long time. The fear of not even the unknown, the fear of the known, knowing that so many people had a problem with who you were. And if you added this to the plate, if you took this on, if you stepped into your truth, you go from everyone loving you and supporting you, like your family and your friends, and not having to worry about jobs and discrimination, to suddenly fulfilling this last little thing, and stepping into your truth, and now knowing that everything changes. That's a big deal. I can't let anyone not give that the weight and the heft that it deserves. It's a huge deal to make that decision. And so when it's done, at least for me, I can tell you, I had a huge sigh of relief. I was like, oh, finally. Oh, it got so heavy carrying all the lies and all the deceit and all the kind of work, extra work, mental, emotional, it took to hide from everyone else. All of that was gone. There's no heaviness anymore. I've honestly never felt lighter. I've never felt more joyful and just optimistic about, going through life day after day. And so that authenticity, that full acceptance of who you are and putting yourself out there for everyone else, that's a huge fear of many, many people. And I could even take it to theater and performance. The number one fear amongst most people in this country is public speaking. The number two fear is death. So there are more people that fear public speaking, doing what I can do very, very easily in my sleep, like don't even bat an eyelash. They fear that more than death. And that is so surreal to me all the time because it's just so easy for me. But then if you break it down further, you understand that by getting on that stage, you make yourself very vulnerable to attacks, to criticism, to unwanted feedback, what have you. And if you're not in a good place to take that on, it can hurt. It can hit you. And so to most, they already don't understand how actors, performers, possibly athletes can already get to that level of performing on that big of a stage and being subjected to that much negativity and what have you. They're certainly not going to then be able to accept or understand how, especially someone who's male to female, is willing to give up the quote unquote white, in my case white, male privilege to live as a woman or to live in a way that now brings negativity towards you and brings vitriol and brings unwarranted attention. Like that is very difficult to understand. And I get it. I know why that's difficult to understand, because if you're trying to constantly live a life where none of that happens to you, then you certainly aren't going to understand how the person sitting right next to you that you've known all these years can just be like, yep, gonna throw it away, gonna step forward, gonna be who I am and just take the lumps that come my way and be okay with that. That's a very difficult thing for people to understand. I get it. I agree. It's very difficult to understand. And so what happens is, in that confusion and in that failure to understand, because let's be honest, most don't even try to understand it. It's just quick to react. That's the situation. They're not looking at it from the perspective of the other party or themselves or how this is in comparison to their own life and their own experience. Nope. It's just, that scares me. And I think it scares me because that is a man trying to be a woman, and that's all I'm going to do with that, and that's how I'm going to leave that. No, it scares you because someone is living authentically. And in the case of someone that's perhaps trans, male to female, they're also giving up what you hold very dear and close to your heart, that privilege and that power. They're giving that up in your world, to your mind. And you can't comprehend that. And so you then start to project your own feelings, your own insecurities, your own vulnerabilities, your own irrational thoughts on that, and allowing it to become the narrative. And I'm not sitting here trying to be a male basher. I have more male friends in my life than I do female, just because of how my life's gone. And I'm not in any way, and I never will, be one of these people that's down on all men and thinks all men are horrible. No, I actually think, and I've said this on the show many times and in public, there are many great, outstanding men and males out in this world. Many. It would have to be. If they were all so horrible, evolutionarily and society-wise, they would have been weeded out eventually. Like, come on. So let's just be honest. Are there some bad eggs out there? Yes. And that's true in every community and every, bracket and box you can check. There's always going to be those, few numbers. And again, if you were to look at those numbers deeper, if you were to drill down, you'd probably find, oh, this has nothing to do with them being a male or nothing to do with necessarily them being straight, gay, whatever. It's more a mental health issue, or it's more a vulnerability, or it's more possible grooming or being radicalized, et cetera, et cetera. And even being radicalized, that starts with feeling lost. Not feeling confident, not feeling secure, not feeling a purpose. And so you are way more able to be controlled because you're looking for control. You're looking for an answer. You're looking for someone to lift you up and say, hey, you matter. You have a place. That's what that's all about. But if we don't talk about it on a very real level, at its core, it just becomes generalities. It just becomes talking points. It just becomes clickbait. It just becomes headlines, or it becomes a narrative or a story that will drive media, drive clicks, lead to revenue, divide us even more so that we're still dependent on media. Like, it's just this perfect circle, which leads me to my last point. Another thing that I have come to very much appreciate about my life, and this is even before I came out, but definitely enhanced after, is that in order to make the decision to live authentically and to be stepping into your truth, that takes a lot of love, and not obviously love from your family, friends, supporters, allies, etc., but really love for yourself. Like, you have put yourself first. You have said, if I lose everyone, if I lose everything, if I lose my family, if I lose my job, it somehow doesn't matter right now in my mind, because nothing could be more painful than not being able to be who I am. And that is a decision that I made and many in our community make on a daily basis. When you step into this, you are putting yourself first, which means you have arrived at a place of loving yourself. Maybe not more than anyone else, but I would certainly say, like, you understand you are a priority, that you must take care of yourself before you can take care of anyone else, because that's just how that works. If you think you're taking care of others really, really well, but not loving yourself and not taking care of yourself, I'm sorry to say, you are not doing the job you have convinced yourself you are doing. Because just imagine if you loved yourself and took care of yourself first and got yourself right, and then were able to pass that on and able to support others and able to give to others. Like that, what you are able to give and the energy output you're able to give to that is just going to increase exponentially. So, and I'm not saying you can't take care of others while also not loving yourself. For many, many years, I did that. But I can tell you again, from my own personal experiences, I thought I was taking care of everyone in this amazing way. I was, but I was only doing it to this almost peak or this maximum level that I was able to do, because I was also, while doing that, suppressing any care of myself, any love of myself. I was actually putting everyone before me. And you do that if you're a people pleaser like I am. You do that to kind of make yourself feel better, like to give yourself purpose and to make yourself almost believe like all these people need me and I'm really helping them and I'm doing good work. And so, fuck it, I don't have to think of myself. I'm getting joy from just taking care of everyone else. Now I can tell you, again, as a people pleaser and as someone that kind of lives in this world of love and vibes, good vibes and positive vibes, that I actually am much better as far as being able to take care of others now than I ever was before. And yes, a lot of that is age and wisdom and perspective, but a lot of that also is if you love yourself and you know who you are, you are just in a better space to be able to be there for others and to give to others. And so now that I am in this place where I can wake up every day and I can give of myself fully, and I can, live in the world of nuance a bit, and I can bring perspective and I can bring wisdom. And then I'm starting to understand that I must use this platform and my talents and my voice to further the community, not just for myself, but for everyone. And to change how people view us, and to hopefully inspire new conversations and new discussions in a way that's just better for everyone, in a way that's not just name calling or not just jumping to, conclusions and assumptions, but just having an honest to God conversation and making sure that people that don't understand this know that much like someone is searching to find themselves in their career, or find themselves as far as a parent, or find themselves as far as how they want to maybe leave their mark on this world, we're doing the same thing. It just looks differently. You might be trying to figure out what career you're best at, or where you fit in the most. And we're doing the same thing. We're just trying to figure that out. And then that answer leads to, oh, your gender is wrong. Like you've been feeling this way because you haven't been yourself. So once you start to entertain what that self looks like, and in my case, it was, hey, you were never supposed to be a male. That you've pretty much known that from day one. You just didn't know what to call that. Now you do. Now let's explore that and let's see what that brings to you. And in my case, it brought me wholeness. It brought me a sense of completion. It brought me a sense of purpose. It brought me a sense of like finally knowing who I am and how I can then proceed through the world. So there was clarity, and there was celebration. And so again, that ties into my first point of like many people in our community at the core of who we are is predominantly love, because now we're just out here living our lives with our significant others, with our partners, with our community, and we're just trying to spread love. We're just trying to make the world we now walk through and that we are in and we're living in, we want to make that world as glorious as it can be. And that's why many people in our community get involved in politics and civic engagement and trying to make our communities better. There's just a record throughout history of people that are in the LGBTQIA plus community, and the reason why love and vibes and celebration and pride is attached to that community is because once you finally step into who you are and you're living authentically, what else do you really have to be afraid of now? Like, you can't come at me anymore. Like, I am so confident with who I am and my purpose and what I'm supposed to be doing here, that the only way you can bring me down really is to beat me down emotionally and physically and mentally and make me feel othered constantly. And so that's what's happening. And so is it hard to rise above that on a daily basis as of late? Yes. But that's nothing new. In these podcast episodes, I interview all these amazing artists. And as of late, I've been able to speak to artists who were in New York in the 80s during the kind of the peak of the AIDS epidemic, and seeing their government give up on them and not really be there for them. And that's happened to women. That's happened to African Americans. And that's currently happening to anyone who, is a quote unquote immigrant in our country right now. And not just South American, but just apparently Irish and South Korean, all this other stuff. Like, we're living in a world right now where being who you are and living your truth, if you are a minority, you are being targeted, clearly. And it doesn't take an expert to see that's all coming from fear. And that's all coming from a place of insecurity and a fear of losing prominence and power and position, because it's scary if you don't know who you are to see the world changing, because then you feel like your identity is being being forced to change without you giving consent to it. And for some people, they can't handle that. For many people, they can't handle that. You know, if someone was forcing me to go back into the closet because I have to in order to survive or live, I've done that once before and it was horrible. I will never do it again. Never. You will never be able to take this away from me, ever. I have now seen what it's like to finally wake up each and every day knowing who I am fully, 100%, and being able to live that life. And it's intoxicating. It's liberating. It's freaking amazing. I love it on so many levels. I think I'm doing this, at least talking like this and putting these thoughts out there, because I feel like, again, I need to be doing something. And aside from going to DC and sitting down with people face to face, which I don't know if that works all the time, at least not right now. It's so hot that no one's willing to listen to reason or anything, on both sides. I just feel like, okay, at the very least, if I can just put my thoughts and my sense of what's happening out there, then again, maybe someone can latch on to this, or someone can help me make this argument better. You know, I don't always have the right words. I know that. I can't keep sitting here and letting this happen and hearing such horrible things said about who I am and who others in this world, other human beings are, and the sense of not even just othering, but the sense of like, you don't exist. You know, these kind of cheap debates where they start by saying and thinking they're smart when they say like, okay, what's your definition of a woman? And that's where they're starting. No, like, it's not as easy as that. We are amazing, phenomenal creatures and beings, and we're very complex, and our world and universe is very complex, which is why religion came around, to kind of give some clarity, you know, to the world. It's a world that's full of mysteries. So anyone that pretends they have all the answers and knows all the science and understands that gender and sex can be reduced to two binaries, maybe every once in a while they understand intersex, but they don't necessarily give it them permission to do anything. They admit that it exists because chromosomally it does, and they have to admit that, or they can't believe in anything else. But then they go, but your attempt to correct that, that's what, again, makes you othered and what makes you different than everyone else. You know, you can, basically they say, well, hey, the rule in life is just accept what you're given. Well, no, that's not any part of our life in America, nor is it any part of what the American dream is. It's always about, from a young age, I was told, you can have anything you want. You can make anything you want to make in this world. Like, it's all before you. There it is, a blank canvas. Go get it. And so on your path to getting it, and on your path to have all the riches and all the gifts that being an American can give you and living the American dream, you find along the way that, hey, I was born in the wrong gender, so now I'm going to fix that so that I can be a better person. Or, hey, I don't know that I identify as straight, because that's just not what my heart is telling me. My heart is telling me something else. And if the heart wants what the heart wants, and that works for everyone, it shouldn't just work for heterosexual couples. It should work for homosexual and lesbian and bisexual couples as well. If we just got to a point where everyone was just basically allowed to be themselves, and as long as then within that kind of framework, you were also being a good person. You don't have to be perfect. No one's asking you to be perfect. No one's perfect. But if you can just be a good person and you can have empathy and you can understand that your life is no more or less than anyone else's, because as human beings, we only have each other, then you're going to do okay. And then it's a bonus if you then can love yourself, live authentically, and give yourself that purpose. I think all of us need to get back to being in communication and in community with our neighbors and friends and family members. We need to put the devices down. We need to get out to nature. You need to see the beauty that's all around you and the mystery. And then you need to figure out, what are you going to leave behind as your mark that you were here? Because I don't care who you are, all of us, I think foundationally all of us, want to just know we were seen, we were heard, we mattered, someone appreciated us, someone was better off, and someone was gifted a better life because you were in it. We all want that. And if we can't find that in love or a partner, we can find that through our career, possibly, or through our art, or through our writing, or through our work. We can make a discovery. We can invent something. We can have a building that we built from scratch that hopefully will outlive everyone that you know, and that still is leaving your mark. So we have to get back to that. We can't just be running in this rat race of doom scrolling and feeling a sense of peace because you're not really ruffling feathers and you're not stepping out. You're just kind of, fading into the woodwork of everyone. And I'm not saying that's wrong. There are certain people who don't ever want the spotlight. They don't ever want to leave their mark. They are totally happy and they're very confident and comfortable in walking through life knowing that that's not in their makeup. And that's great too. That's why I'm saying there's no wrong way to do this. The only wrong way is to not love yourself, to not appreciate or respect yourself enough to then live authentically, to find out who you are and embrace it and live it and be truthful in that and be fully committed to that. I just want to end with this wish and this hope that everyone finds somehow the ability to love themselves, to figure out who they are, how they want to be remembered, recognize that it's not too late to change that. And then on a more microscopic level, we all of us, no matter what party or what camp you feel like you belong in, we all, as people in this country, as members of this democracy, we all need to figure out what the true problem is, which is that on both sides, the politicians, the corporate interests, the lobbyists, the money, that's what's at the heart of making all of this fractured. And if we, as the people, do not unite in some way, shape, or form, and do it very quickly, and take our government back, and get these billionaires, removed from our government and removed from our way of life, then we are all going to find ourselves in one giant pot that I think we're kind of already in, which is, if you are not a billionaire, if you are not a wealthy politician or even a politician that can bring something to the table, you will not have a fruitful life, and you will not have a life where you feel you were able to have the American dream. Because right now, there's a very small percentage of people that are dictating who gets to have the American dream and who gets to benefit and who gets to come out on top. And I guarantee you, it's none of us that are not tech billionaires or politicians in the Capitol right now. They're not thinking of us. So, yeah, I've said enough. You've heard me. Just please play this for someone that maybe needs to hear this. Share it if you can. And we'll be back next week with an interview. I promise you. Thank you. Have a great week. Remember, take care of each other. Take care of yourselves. And always lead with love. I'm telling you, it's a good thing. You'll get very far.
I have no fucks left. No, no, I have no fucks, right? Oh, oh, I have no fucks left. No, no, so fuck off, I'm busy, bye, bye. Piss off, not sorry, don't cry.
No Fucks Left is presented by Transplendent Media. The creator and host is Landyn Shaw. Associate producer, AJ Lubert. Media manager, Ryan Balmer. And our graphics and logo design is from Wally Spence.
So fuck off, I'm busy, bye, bye. Piss off, not sorry.